Hi, my name is Eugene. I'm the group CTO for Star Media Group. Let me just share with you my screen. Let's see. Okay, so I've just shared with you my screen, and the company that I work for is called Star Media Group. And for my slides, what I plan to do is I plan to I have maybe about 10 to 12 slides, and it's basically to talk through to you in terms of how we over at the Star Media Group we created a data-driven culture to basically help with our digital transformation. Okay. So, for those of you who are familiar in the ASEAN region or Malaysia, you're probably going to be familiar with the Star. But basically, the Star is a leading English newspaper in Malaysia, and we're more than just English news, right? So we run print and we run online. So on online, we have a site called thestar.com .my, and basically we get about 10 million unique views per month. But with the pandemic, with the COVID-19 pandemic, we in fact doubled our numbers in March. So in Malaysia, we did an MCO, which was a movement control order. So it's almost like a kind of loose quarantine, and we did that. We went into lockdown in March 12th, if I'm not mistaken, and so our our unique views in March doubled from 10 million on average to about 20.6. So we run not only print, we run the Star Online, which is the one with the 20.6 million on March. We also got a couple of radio stations. So 988 is one of our radio stations. We average about 1.9 million weekly listeners. We also have a radio station called Surya, so that's predominantly Bahasa Malaysia, so it's a BM radio station. So that's about 2.3 million weekly listeners. We have an OTT site called Dim Sum, although it sounds like something you eat. Basically, it streams. It's a video streaming site, a video on demand streaming site, and it streams Asian content. And we average about 1.1 million subscribers. We also run a Malay portal called M-Star, and that's about 5.6 million UVs on average per month. Again, during the movement control order or the lockdown, the numbers has gone up a little bit. We also run something called Kuali. So Kuali is, if you go to kuali.com, it's a website that basically does cooking recipes. And if you really love Malaysian food, I encourage you to go over to the Kuali site. We've also got a Kuali app, and I'll talk a little bit about our Kuali app a little bit later. Besides that, we also run some property sites. So we've got something called Star Property, where you can look at property to buy, sell, or rent. We've also got a site called iBilik. So the word bilik in Bahasa Malaysia stands for room. So it's room rentals, okay? For students or people looking for just single rooms. We've got a job site called My Star Job. We've got a very old educational magazine, more for primary 1 to primary 6 children, called Kuntum. We've got an investigative journalism site called Rage. They are a Peabody Award-winning site. They've won quite a number of awards with some very, very interesting investigative journalism. We've got a car site called Car Sifu, and basically all our digital assets total up to about, on average, before the lockdown was about 20 million unique views, and it's about 120 million page views per month across platform. But these were the average numbers. So during the lockdown, just that one site, which was the star.com.my, doubled up to 20.6. Right, so I think during the lockdown, our total unique views was probably about 30 million. But now as the economy is opening up, as the lockdown has been lifted, we're back to roughly about 21 million now. So basically, our goal is basically to work with the consumer to inspire, to inform them, and hope to build our local communities and to build partnership into our ecosystem. So that's really what the Star Media Group is. But we are 45. Next year is our 50th year anniversary. So we grew from very, very traditional roots, which is the traditional newspaper. So being in the media industry, we are continuously being challenged and disrupted. So, and basically the three things that have, been attacking us over the past maybe about 3 to 4 years, or, so definitely one of the things that we see is we've been heavily disrupted by the digital format. So newspaper, our print readership has been going down. We used to be, I think the numbers have probably gone down by about 20-30% for the last 3 to 4 years. We used to be much higher, but as things move online, the youngsters all don't want to buy the newspapers. They find it very old-fashioned. Old timers like me still prefer to read and flip the newspapers. So we do still have our loyal following, but in general, the traditional print following has been declining, all right? And people have started to move to online, which is not only our site, but news items can also be viewed in other sites. And sometimes we ourselves get disrupted by Google and Facebook because they also take news from all over the place and they aggregate, right? So definitely digital format disruption is something. And then, not only do people start consuming things online, people start sharing things online. So when people start sharing things, the need to come to our site to read the original news declines. So that's another thing that has been disrupting us. And I think I've mentioned earlier, we also, not only has the internet been something that has been disrupting us, but the fact that there are companies that have been building a business around the internet. So like Google and Facebook, they themselves, those social media sites have also been disrupting us, right? So basically these three things have been challenging us. And times have been quite challenging. So because times have been quite challenging, we needed to find a way to find new revenue streams to make our news a lot more sticky, or our portals a lot more sticky. Okay. But we've also got some challenges. As I mentioned, we are a 50-year-old company, so we've got some challenges. Some of the challenges that I'm going to list down is not alien. I mean, a lot of other non-media companies also have similar challenges. So definitely one of the things that has been challenging to us is we have had multiple technologies. So in the second slide I showed you, we have so many digital assets, but I think in the past we used to be engineered quite haphazardly. So when you went to one site, we had different technologies across different sites. And because we had different technologies across different sites, our resources were stretched. Obviously we needed to find a way to track if some user went on one site and then he visited a different site, but all within our Star Media Group's ecosystem, we were not able to do that because we use different technologies. Obviously, in a lot of our sites, we push advertisements, but for whatever reason in the past, we ourselves shot ourselves in the foot because we had different ad servers. So we had site ABC using ad server X, site DEF using ad server Y, right? So for whatever reason. So obviously, because we had multiple technologies and because we had no unified way to track customers, we had so many different technologies. We were just, falling all over ourselves. And, as mentioned, we also had different ad servers. Okay. We had data all over the place, right? So we had data in print, we had data online, right? And some are on websites, some are on digital. We also, and I probably didn't show that in the previous slide, we also have an events business, right? So, for the longest time, our events business used to do things like either Excel sheets or Google Sheets to track customers, right? And that itself is not integrated. So we never had a single customer database to view, our entire base. So we had a lot of pockets and silos here and there. We didn't have one single person looking at and analyzing all the data, obviously. And because of all this, we knew we had the data, but because we were falling all over ourselves, we just didn't know how to engage our audiences better. So these were some of the challenges that we basically encountered, right? So the need to be customer centric was one, and the need to be data driven. We knew we had a lot of data, but we just needed to find a way to collate it. Okay, so what we needed to do in our journey for transformation, which started in 2018, was we needed to build a single unified view of our customers, which is at the center of all the things that drive the Star Media growth. So basically a view of a customer, and this was the same customer if he visited the Star Online and he went to Kuali to check recipes, and then if he went to Dim Sum to view some videos, we needed to know that it's the same person, so we can either target him or push the right ads, or even study his persona and figure out what he likes to consume on our sites, and then push the right information to him, also to make our ecosystem a lot more sticky and I guess compelling for the user to come back. So basically that's what we needed to do. We needed to build a single unified view, right? So this diagram basically summarizes what we needed to do. We needed a way to collate the consumer data, which is all the data that we had on our sites, and firstly was different technologies. So we needed to unify the technologies, right? And then we needed to start building a customer 360 database that form the view of what the customer is. We need to take external data in, product data, and then through that basically build the view of the customer, right? So we need to build the view in terms of what the customer was reading on our site, what he did, how much time he spent reading certain articles, did he, and then the type of patterns he started to consume articles. Did he just, read 1, 2, 3 business articles and just flip through, right? Or he spent a lot of time scrolling through reading, right? So, and then we also have to analyze the kind of behavioral patterns, right? And so some of those things were quite interesting. We found quite interesting nuggets of information, like perhaps a person viewing our sites on mobile. These were what we call the flickers, right? So they will look at top line headlines, 1, 2 paragraphs, and they'll flip, right? But those people who were consuming our articles and our materials on a website, because they had the bigger screen, they had more ability to scroll and spend a lot more time. So these were some interesting things that we found. So length of time the customer was spending on our site, the frequency, what he actually did on our site, what kind of preferred channels, where he came from when he read articles. Did he, was he doing an organic search, or was he targeted? Did he come to our articles because he came from newsletters, or he came to our articles because he saw posting on Facebook and Twitter, right? And then when we look at all these behavioral patterns, we then form some insights on the customer in terms of what age, what demographic, how does he read outside, what kind of device he uses, and the amount of time he spends reading certain things, and is there a pattern? And if we know the pattern, then we know how to do 2 things, basically push the right advertisement to him, or push the right article or recommendation to him. May it be an article, may it be a product, may it be a video, right? Right. So basically that's what we needed to do, right? In one slide. So we started building this, and I think the first things we basically did was we tried to get our house in order. So as I mentioned in 2 slides ago, we had different ad servers. So we consolidated to one ad server. We had 2 or 3 DMPs, and if you know what a DMP is, it's a data management platform. So basically, it's a database that that we keep track using cookies in terms of whether that same person visited site Star Online. Is that the same person that visited Kuali.com, right? So in the past, we could not do that because we had different DMPs, right, for all the weird things that we used to do in the past. So we consolidated on one DMP, so we really was able to find a single view of the customer. So basically, based on based on the content of the site that we managed to get, to collate, as mentioned, we were able to get information about the customer. And once we get information about the customer, we were able to personalize his journey in terms of, what kind of articles we push out to you, right? We've got some machine learning also that we have started to employ, right? So some of this machine learning would actually help in terms of recommending the right articles, right? Um, we also use the same techniques in terms of knowing what the customer has been reading, what he likes to read, to try to create some correlation in terms of what are the kind of adverts that maybe we should push out to him. So if it's a person who has been reading car articles a lot, right, then you know that a Honda ad is probably something that is best pushed out to him, right? So that's what we've been doing, right? We use the right data um, to not only push the right content, which is really recommendation, but to also push the right ads to basically the customer. And this is across all our sites. So our sites, we've got, like I mentioned, we've got multiple sites. So if you're moving and reading articles between all the different sites, we collate all that information. We do some focus, mumbo jumbo, cast a few Hogwarts spells together, right? And then we analyze and we push the right recommendation over to the customer. So with the hope that in the process of doing all that, we increase customer experience. So that the customer feels that, hey, reading experience on the Star ecosystem is generally better because so I would want to stay here longer because I tend to keep scrolling and find the right articles keep popping up for me. So that's really what we want to do. Are we there? Yeah, I think we are slowly getting there. We are still fine-tuning algorithms. Yeah, so that's what we want to do. We want to increase customer experience, increase the customer experience through the personalization that we actually do. Also increase discoverability. So as we start pushing the right content, then hopefully that customer gets more interested to spend more time on our site. Right, so that's really what we want to do. So I've mentioned the last 2 or 3 slides talk about using our data in terms of knowing what the customer is, knowing what his preferences are so that we can do the right thing for him. We also started to dabble in terms of machine learning, right, to learn based on past data to assist in some of the works. And a few areas that we've been experimenting with machine learning is it's basically in the next 2 or 3 sites. So we've been using machine learning in Dim Sum, right? So as mentioned previously, Dim Sum is our OTT site. So we only run Asian content. So we've got Chinese content, Thai content, Korean content, right? And obviously with those kind of contents, when we buy the content, we actually have to do translation. So we used to have 2, 3 different, I think at peak, we had maybe about 4 translators. So translating is not an easy task, right? But what has happened is we have started to implement some machine learning. So we've been feeding our old translations to this software, and it's been learning. And then now we've unleashed all this software to do translation. So we used to have about maximum 4 translators at one go. So now we've cut down to 1 or 2 translators. So basically what we do is we let the machine learning figure out, do the first pass for the translation, and then the final QA is done by a humanoid, but it's a human person. So that's worked out really, really well because firstly, translations go much faster, and then in terms of manpower, we've been able to cut down in terms of the number of translators that we've actually been using. Okay, excuse me. So that's one thing that we've been doing. We've been using machine learning to help with translation. The other thing that we've been also doing is, we use cloud, right? So in the cloud, I think for those of you who use the cloud, you know that there are different tiers of cloud storage. There's a normal tier, and then there's the archive tier where data that is maybe not so hot, it's a little bit more cold. You plunk it in the archive tier so that it's a lower cost, right? But hot data that can be accessed very fast, you want to put it in a faster tier, right? And there are different tiers, right? Whether you're using AWS, GCP, Azure. So all these cloud providers have got the same thing, right? So if you don't manage, and with cloud providers, if you don't manage things well, right? Everybody tells you, yeah, going to the cloud is cheaper, but for those of you who have been managing the cloud for the longest time, you know that cloud, if you don't manage things, can actually become more expensive, because if you forget, you can spin off too many unwanted instances, and there you go, you start clocking costs. If you have if you've got data in the wrong tier, right? So if you have all your data in the fast tier, then obviously you're going to be paying a higher cost. So we've been also been using machine learning. So basically what it does is it goes through the data, it studies patterns in terms of access, and then it does automatic recommendations in terms of whether data should be in a more frequently accessed tier, right, which is more expensive, and data that is less access can go to infrequently accessed tier, which is then cheaper. So that helps in terms of costing, right? Doesn't really help the customer, but it's basically something that is internal. And the third thing that we've also experimented in terms of machine learning is really in terms of computer vision, right? So we, as mentioned, I think we've got this food vertical called Kuali. So Kuali is the Malay word for wok, right? So wok is the English word, the wok that you fry your noodles in, right? So the Malay word for wok is Kuali, right? So if you have been in the Asia region, you know that you use the Kuali to cook your food quite a lot. So so on the website, in the Quali website, you can find whole tons of recipes. But on the Quali app, right, not only can you find recipes, but we've got this neat little function where you can use the camera in your Quali app and you can snap a picture of an ingredient. So it can be a broccoli, it can be a potato, it can be a lady's finger, right? And what the function does is after snapping the picture, it recognizes what the ingredient is, and then it goes through all the quality recipes, and then it recommends. So for example, if you snap a picture of I don't know, anchovies, right? So it recognizes and then it recommends recipes that you can cook using anchovies, right? So we built that function because we were testing out computer vision, and then we also wanted to test out and see how we can, you know, play around with this camera snapping function. And we wanted to give our app a little novelty in terms of, hey, sometimes you've got stuff in your fridge, but you don't know what to cook, right? So just use your Quali app, snap what you have in your fridge, and then it will recommend recipes. But you know, so interestingly, this app became quite useful during lockdown phase, right? Because so in Malaysia, as mentioned before, March 12, we went into a lockdown, and when we went into a lockdown, I think the first 4 weeks was quite strict. And then the government started to relax things, right? So the first 4 weeks was you basically couldn't go out, or rather you could, but there were time slots. And then as the government started to relax the rulings, then the government said, okay, you can go out, but only one person can go out from the household, right? So and it has to be the head of the household, right? Some, you know, authoritarian rule, right? So, and usually the head of the household will be the male person, right? So we had this interesting situation in Malaysia where the head of the household would be out buying groceries, and he has absolutely no clue what anchovies look like, or what choy sum looks like, or what you know, asparagus looks like, right? So so we then promoted our app and say, hey, don't worry, use the Quali app, right? So when you're in so we had this situation where we had people who were over at the supermarket and they had the list, basically a list of groceries to buy, and that, you know, and all the husbands had no clue what you know, what ikan bawal was, which was pomfret, right? Or you know, how to recognize pomfret versus you know, a different type of fish, right? Or how to recognize bok choy versus kale versus spinach, right? So that's, you know, for those of you who cook, it's probably a laughable matter. So we said that, yeah, don't use the Quali app, snap a picture of it, and it will tell you what it is, right? So basically, that's what we did. We've got we use image recognition and machine learning, and you know, we've embedded it into our Quali app to do something quite interesting. So those of you who love cooking, I recommend you go and find it on Apple Play Store or Android Play Store, right? So it's an interesting usage of machine learning and AI, image recognition, right? So, so how long did it take us to build all this data-driven culture and capabilities? Well, there's two things. So the technical capabilities was a journey that started in August 2018. So we put together basically a roadmap. We went to the board and we said, look, this is the amount of effort and all that. So we started hooking things up, rationalizing technologies. So that itself, technology-wise, just getting the house in order took at least about 9 to 12 months to start seeing things getting consistent. But it took maybe close to 1.5 years to have a lot more of the ecosystem. So 9 to 12 months, you get the first few websites all being standardized. But to fully roll things out, we probably required about 1.5 years or so. But so that was making sure we had uh, the shop in order. But we also had to create a business case, tell the board that look, we wanted to build. We didn't have an analytics team, right? So the building up, hiring the analytics team, forming the analytics team itself took about 14 months. So started with a business case, and then so I put the business case in. I think way back it was approved in August 2018, and I think towards the end of August, towards the end of 2018, the head of analytics came in. Then he started to build his team up. Yeah, it's probably about 14-15 months to go from zero to at least a semblance in terms of what we're doing right now. So yeah, so basically that's what we did. Basically 14-15 months, just yeah. So, but the journey is still continuing because we like I said, we were quite bare bones, but we are now at the stage where at least we have got things in order. We have started to be able, at least all our technologies are now consistent. We have teams in place to at least get data in and start analyzing and working on algorithms to do the right recommendations and all that. So we are probably semi-steady state right now. So I think in 2018 we were definitely not in steady state. In 2019 we were at the starting points where the technologies were coming in place to generate the data that we wanted to use. And then towards the end of 2019 was when we had the necessary team in place to pick the data that was coming in from the rationalized technologies to then start analyzing and churning the right results. So that's where we are, about 14 to 18 months to do all this. But the work still continues. Doesn't mean we're done. So 14 months was to build the team up, but 18 months was to at least have some kind of semblance of steady state for having all the technologies in place. Okay, so in summary, and this is my last slide, this is really what in the Star Media Group, what we want to do. We really want to be focused on audiences. So as mentioned in slide number 2, where I told you the different types of businesses that we do and all that, you've realized that we've got the English assets, we've got Chinese assets, right? Or non-English assets. We've also got Malay content, right? So basically what we want to do is we want to build our ecosystem, our digital ecosystem around these 3 types of audiences. And there's a reason why we are segmenting by audiences, because the guys who read the English stuff generally do not read the content that is in Chinese. And the audiences that read the stuff in Chinese don't read the stuff in Malays, and vice versa. So that's why it's going to be quite an audience-centric strategy, right? So at the heart of the audience-centric strategy is basically our English assets. So our English assets is Star Online, the physical paper, and then our Star mobile app. So that's where the bulk of our English audience comes from, right? We also have the Malay audience, and this is primarily from 2 of our Malay sites, which is MStar, the Malay portal, and then Surya, which is our Malay radio station. And we obviously have the Chinese audience, right? And the Chinese audience is predominantly from 988, which is our Chinese radio station, and Dim Sum, which is our OTT offering, right? So based on these 3 audiences, we have, we surround it with analytics and digital technologies. And basically what we do is we build tribes, or we build verticals that thrive on these 3 audiences. So with these 3 kind of audiences, with the fact that we know what they read, what they consume, we hope to build verticals very focused in terms of some of these other areas. So if you read the content on the Star and all that, you will find that we've got quite strong content on education, lifestyle. food because of quality, right? Property, right? Because we've got property sites and all that. So these are all the B2C, right? Or rather intent-based audiences, or rather intent-based content that we intend to build. At the same time, the B2B kind of capabilities that we want to focus on is all the subscription, the advertisements, pushing the right advertisements, selling the right events, because now that we know our audiences, so we know what kind of events we want to do, then building sponsorships. So that's basically what we intend to do with the ecosystem that we have built so far and are continuing to build, right? So that's basically my short presentation in terms of what the Star Media Group is, our journey since 2018 in terms of how haphazardly structured we were, all the way to now where we've at least got some semblance of some technologies and capabilities to do the things that we want to do. And I've showed you some innovations that we've done. And then, and this last slide is basically to show what we plan to do moving forward. Okay, so with that, thank you. Stay safe. I enjoyed my short 20-minute presentation. Didn't even time, so I'm not sure how long I took. I hope you enjoyed my little presentation in terms of this. Okay, thank you very much.